Good morning, good morning. Thank you so much for joining me. This is the podcast, The Endurance of Labor Laws. I am your lovely host, Lesley Sullivan. And today is episode 122. And we're going to take a look at the International Union of Allied Novelty and Production Workers. This one's kind of interesting, but it kind of disappoints me at the same time, because I think this has to deal with NAFTA, the North American Fair Trade Agreement, and some things that occurred before, during, and after that agreement in terms of jobs going overseas. So this one kind of disappoints me a little bit. But again, this is the International Union of Allied Novelty and Production Workers. A little bit of background. It is headquartered in Hillside, Illinois. It has locations in the United States and Canada, which I find that kind of to be a little hypocritical, because being that a lot of jobs have been shipped overseas, then that means we have locations elsewhere. So it's kind of like they're not wanting to acknowledge that there's slave labor within the toy making industry, because a lot of these jobs are done in China and India now, and they have very much slave labor there. But in terms of this union, they have 18,000 members. Their president is Mark Spano, and they have affiliations with AFL-CIO. A little bit of background here. The International Union of Allied Novelty and Production Workers, also known as IUANPW, long one there, is an American labor union representing over 18,000 employees. Traditionally, it organized workers at toy factories, but as that industry moved overseas, it evolved into a general union, which is stupid, in a variety of industries. So basically, let me just say this. This union completely failed. It failed in terms of protecting people's jobs from going overseas. Unions are supposed to keep jobs here in the United States. They are not supposed to be shipped overseas. So they failed. So I'm a little disappointed in that, because they did not protect the worker. Because there's no way this union can protect the workers overseas. No way. Because there's communism, socialism, fascism. And plus like tribal thinking over there in India and some of their villages. Like India may claim to be a democracy in certain places, but it is not a true democracy. They still have a caste system over there. And in case there are people listening to this that don't know what the caste system is, the caste system in India is where whatever social status you're born into, that's where you permanently stay. Basically, your culture, your society, your town, your village, not a city, but your village or town decides you permanently stay cleaning toilets every day for the rest of your life, and you can never do anything more with your life. You will never move up to middle class or upper class or whatever the case may be. So needless to say, this is why we should not have international unions like this per se, because workers' rights are not protected. They are not protected. And again, we are not responsible for workers in other countries. We're only responsible for the workers here in the United States, and this union failed to protect the jobs of workers here in the United States because they went overseas or down to Mexico. So needless to say, this one, it's not doing a good job, unfortunately. I wish it was, actually. I wish it would do a great job, because they have so many members, and they could have way more members if they actually protected people's jobs, for sure. It says it was established in the 1940s. The union was originally named the International Union of Dolls, Toys, Playthings, Novelties, and Allied Products of the United States and Canada. See, I think that's their mistake right there. They were aligning themselves with Canada from the get-go. I think that's one of the reasons why this union failed. It says the name was changed to the International Union of Allied Novelty and Production Workers in the late 1970s, as toy manufacturing was largely shipped overseas. So if this was going on, if jobs were being shipped overseas, in the 1970s, that was, when did NAFTA come out? Clinton was in office in the 90s, so this would have been 20 years prior. So there were some things that were going on before Clinton signed that into law, and then there were things that happened after he signed it into law. So there was something going on within our economy that people were sending jobs overseas. So that's a big problem there. So, the workers here in the United States, we've been losing jobs here since the 1970s, and it needs to stop. We need to have stuff made here and proudly made here in the United States, so that way people have access to food, water, and shelter, and they have a good job. Not a bad job, a good job. You don't have to be in management to have a good job. People make this mental mistake all the time in thinking that only managers can make a lot of money. No. Most of the people I have met over the years that made really good money were not even in management. And here's the thing, the people that I know that make a lot of money and are not in management, you couldn't pay them to be in management. First of all, they'd have to take a cut in pay, and number two, they don't want the stress. So just FYI, just because someone's a manager doesn't mean they make more money than you. They might actually hate their job. They might actually be under a lot of stress. So, if anything, pray for people that you don't understand. So that's what I do. It helps a lot. It says, during the 1990s, the union struggled with infiltration by organized crime. There was a guy that was convicted of fraud with pension funds, not surprised there. Later on, there was another individual that was convicted of racketeering and arson to conceal evidence. So this union has had some issues, that's for sure. In terms of closing on this one, it says, today, this union represents a wide array of job classifications at numerous employers and industries, including general manufacturing, construction, food production, transportation, and automotive fields. I find that very odd because almost every single one of those occupations have been predominantly moved to another country out of the United States, except for construction. Thank goodness construction has not been infiltrated and taken over by other countries within the United States. And I'll give an example here. So general manufacturing, a lot of manufacturing jobs have been sent over to China. Like, for example, if you buy a grill, it's probably made in China. If you buy a mixer or a blender, it's probably made in China. They're not made well anymore. And that really bugs me because I bake pies. I'm a baker. Like, I love to bake pies, and I bake bread as well, but my specialty is pies. So I notice when I get a crappy blender or mixer or have a not so good oven, I notice bad products, and it just frustrates me because it's just throwing your money down a rat hole because you're paying all this money for a crappy good that's doing a horrible service. And it's like, my work is a reflection of me. So these people's products and their work is a reflection of them, and it doesn't look very good for them. So the construction, still within the United States, that's amazing. Food production, for example, Hostess, some of their stuff is being made in Mexico. Nabisco, some of their stuff is being made in Mexico. That one company I mentioned the other day, Mendelez, they make their products in so many other countries, and they're ruining food. It's like, what's interesting is whenever you have a European conglomerate ruining food, it's like, we think of really good food as being European couture, tasting really good, things like that. Well, here's the thing. There are holding companies in Europe as well, and they try and take over things too. So whenever people think of capitalism, they think of the United States, and they think of Wall Street, and they think of greed. I got news for you. We are just a small grain of sand compared to the greed that is out there on this planet. There's so much greed out there that happens in other countries with their holding companies and their finance companies that we don't even know about. There's one company, I went through a phase of eating, what's it called, mackerel or salmon, because I don't like tuna. But I was trying to eat protein or whatever. So you buy like that canned meat, And so I looked up the company name, and I forget it now off the top of my head. I'll look it up later and let you guys know what that is. But I looked it up, and this company is owned by a company, by another company, a holding company. It's not even American. Like, they make it seem like it's an American good, but it's not. I'm like, this is great. And it was really creepy, some of the human rights violations that they have and not paying their workers appropriately. I'm like, that is not the American way. The American way is to keep jobs here, have good jobs so people can provide for themselves and their family and support their country. So, if someone doesn't look kindly on the United States, I think they should look at themselves and see what the issue is. Because the United States does a really good job of protecting people, helping people. I mean, even people in other countries. Even when we obviously do not have the money because we are in trillions and trillions of dollars of debt. We need to handle that because that's ridiculous because it's weakening our currency for sure. But needless to say, so anyway, they're talking about food production, some of these jobs being within this union. Well, a lot of those jobs are not here in the United States. They're not even in Canada. So how can they be a part of the union if their job is not even here in the United States? And if the company they work for is not even American? That's really weird, or it's not even Canadian. The other one is transportation. I find that kind of weird because there's There was one union we looked at in regards to bus drivers and stuff, and bus drivers and things of that nature, they already have their own labor union. I think it's really a disadvantage for transportation workers to have multiple unions out there, because it just you lose power, and you lose not your workers' rights, but you lose your bargaining tools. You lose your bargaining rights, so to speak, whenever you have fractions or factions within your union and you start splitting up. See, when you're separated, you don't have much power. But when you come together, you're very powerful. So I think that's one of the things here that, this union, it's novelty and production workers. What does it know about transportation? It's not its specialty. So if I were a transportation worker and wanted to be in a union, I would not be in this union. I would go with a labor union that is specifically for transportation workers, and that they have a lot of power in terms of their bargaining power. When I say power, I don't mean corruption, I mean doing what's right. It says, and then it has automotive fields in terms of protecting people's jobs within this union. Well, this union is not for automotive workers. So again, if I was a automotive worker, it didn't matter if I was an engineer, a designer, or I worked on the factory line, the assembly line, whatever the case may be, or maybe I'm a delivery driver in the automotive field, whatever the case may be, I would go with a labor union that is specifically for my job, not something that's just gobbling up other industries. Because here's the thing, you need to be specialized in what you do, so that way you can make more money, and so you know what's going on within your industry. Otherwise, it's kind of pouring your dues and your monies down a rat hole and not really getting the representation that you technically do deserve. So, just FYI, be aware of that. If you are in a really large labor union, it has gobbled up all these other industries, I would go with a labor union, again, that specializes within your particular labor force, so that way you can have better bargaining rights. It's kind of like, I hate to use this example, but it's kind of like Greek row, right? The sorority houses and the fraternity houses. Yes, you have the Greek system, but you have individual houses. And so, no two sorority houses are exactly the same. No two frat houses are exactly the same. No two sorority houses are going to join together under one umbrella. It's just not going to happen. They're two totally different organizations. It's the same with the frat houses. I mean, I remember being in college, and I don't remember any frat house liking any other frat house. They would party together just so they could drink and get laid, which is horrible. Because you would think that, if these men, they want to get married, but marry someone that's pure, then why are they basically throwing their purity away and helping somebody else throw their purity away? It's just kind of hypocritical. But, the only time they came together was to really be immoral and possibly date rape a woman. So, but needless to say, their fraternities, they did not ever come together to promote the common good, and neither did sororities. So, what's interesting is that the date parties that sororities had were way classier than the ones the fraternities had. I remember dating this one guy in a frat house, and his frat house, oh my gosh, alcoholics galore. They were horrible. I couldn't believe how much alcohol they consumed. I was like, you're ruining your liver. And they're like, what, are you a doctor? I'm like, no, it's called common sense. It was insane. I was like, do you realize you're probably going to need a liver transplant by the time you're 22 or 24? Like, this is ridiculous. So, I was dating this guy. We each had a date party. And so, of course, because we're dating, we're going steady, we invite each other to our date parties. My date party for my sorority house was very classy. It was very fun. It was awesome. Was there alcohol? Sure, but it was classy. There was no sex. It wasn't vulgar. It was just how a date should be. Just get to know the person. His date party, he was kind of embarrassed at how bad it went. It did not reflect his house very well. They sang like these very graphic, pornographic, almost like pirate songs on the date party bus. Like, my mouth dropped. And my date just kind of hung his head. I was like, this is the frat house that you're in? Like, this is disturbing. So, needless to say, His frat house was completely different than any other frat house I had ever been to. And needless to say, our relationship did not stand the test of time by any means. But here's the thing. My point is this. Groups of people, they're in a group for a reason. It's because they're like-minded. Okay? His frat house did not hardly get along with any other frat house because they were boozers. It was really bad. However, if you needed help, like if someone was attacking you or something, they would go to bat for you. I know that, but that they would protect women and things like that. Because this was the guy I dated. He was in a frat house that did not date rape women. Like that was just not their thing. There were houses on campus that they were known for date raping. They were known for you couldn't drink their Jell-O shots. So I didn't drink anything. I always brought my own bottled water whenever I went to a party at a frat house, which was very rare because I didn't enjoy them. I didn't like the music. I found it really stupid that these frat houses here in Oklahoma were playing rap music and acting like they could dance. I'm like, you people are morons. Like, this is so dumb. This is not real life. This is a party for animals, and we're not animals, we're people. Like, this is ridiculous. So I guess I was very conservative, and I hardly went to any of those parties. I think I went to like 2 or 3 frat house parties, like where it wasn't like a designated date night. It was just, hey, go to a party. I think I went to like 2 or 3 parties the entire time I was in college. I went to almost every single date party that we had in my sorority house because I knew that it was classy. The guy had to dress up. He had to act like a gentleman. It's like, okay, this is how a man is supposed to act. So needless to say, I did not go to very many date parties where I was dating a guy and his house was having, like, where you invite, the girl that you're going steady with. I went to a few of those, not many, because it just always turned into a booze hound fest. I'm just like, this gets so old because, when I go to a party, even back then, I was like, I want to get to know people. I want to talk to people, things like that. And it wasn't like that at all. I guess I thought people were classy. I thought people were kind. And I was like, this is just Sodom and Gomorrah Part 2. It's Pompeii Part 3. I'm just like, you've got to be kidding me. So just basically do whatever you want to your body or someone else's body Thursday, Friday, Saturday night. And then if you're kind of feeling religious, repent Sunday morning, maybe go to a church service and not fall asleep, and not throw up in the bathroom because you're hungover, and then start your week over and just keep doing it every week. It just was really weird to me. I was like, I can't live that kind of lifestyle. That is not me. But anyway, my point is this. Interesting dating stories, right? But I got a ton of them in terms of that. But here's the thing. Whatever group you're in is the group that you're in, okay? You're like-minded. So, in regards to labor unions, especially when it comes to your labor, you need to be a part of a group that understands your labor through and through. And it's not just a surface level, yeah, we care, come under our umbrella. No. They need to specifically understand your segment of the population. They need to understand your industry. They need to understand the standards set in your industry. And they also need to understand the labor laws that are in your state, your area, and in your country. Because, we have the United, 50 states, right? But we also have territories. So, I know, for example, our labor laws are not exactly the same, from Oklahoma to Texas to Florida to California, especially California. California is very extreme in so many things, in some good ways, but also some extreme things are just too extreme, and it is depleting it's depleting, I was going to say their currency, to act like they have a currency, but they don't. Thank goodness, right? It wouldn't be worth anything. But, California, yes, they protect the job and they protect the worker, but it's gotten so extreme that California, they act like they are their own labor union. And so, they're just too liberal. I mean, there's nothing wrong with being Democrat. Like, I miss my normal Democrats. I miss them greatly. I really miss them. I just do. It's nice to be a Republican, and everything. It's nice to be a capitalist, but, I miss the camaraderie, with my fellow Democrats or my Democrats friends that I have. And it just seems like they're either extreme or it's like they don't exist anymore. I feel like the Democratic Party has been taken over by some really serious liberals and socialists, so then it's like we don't have just these normal political parties. They have these extreme agendas that don't make sense and that are not normal or rational for any country. So it's just one of those things that, if you are a Democrat and you're normal, I miss you, I love you. I really do. I miss the normal people because, it's easy to meet a nut these days. It really is. I'd rather have a normal Democrat that's really kind and sweet any day of the week. But anyway, I will go ahead and end this podcast. But until next time, I pray that you're happy, healthy, and whole, that you have a wonderful day and a wonderful week. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.